And in the first story, the Institute of Fiscal Studies, IFS, is forecasting an end-of-year public debt stock of 140 billion cedis. According to figures from the Bank of Ghana, total public debt as at the close of June stood at 138 billion cedis. But when this is compared with the size of the economy, the ratio appears to be declining. Director of the Institute, Professor Newman Kusi, said government should not be excited by this development.
If the debt ratio is coming, at the fact of the matter that the money that you have to pay is going up. As of June, end of June, we were owing 138.6 billion cedis. Okay, and the government is going to, borrow additional 14.8 billion, 2 billion of which will be new debt, which will be added to the 138 to take us to 140 billion cities. That is the cross of the matter. So we need to, and this 140 billion, we're going to pay interest on that. So if you go to the government budget, you see how the extent to which the interest cost is rising. So relating to GDP figures, which can be inflated to bring down the ratio, is neither here. It's just an indication as to whether the debt is sustainable or not. But the fact of the matter is that the volume of the nominal debt is increasing, and it's time that we put a stop to that.
Now, former Finance Minister Seth Terkper is optimistic moves to formalize the economy would indeed help deal with challenges with revenue mobilization. He refers to the current administration's implementation of a new project aimed at identifying every person and structure in the country through a national ID system. Government over the years has struggled to raise the required revenue to match the level of economic activity in the country. Latest fiscal data released by the Finance Ministry showed that revenue for the first 7 months of the year was down by almost 3 billion cedis against a target of 24 billion cedis. Speaking to Joy Business recently in Washington, D.C., Mr. Terkper said this could be the country's best efforts to addressing this challenge.
I'm saying that it will be better. However you look at it, it will be far better than anything we have today. And I gave you the example. You go to Ibi, for example, or you go to, let's say Pokwase, and these are not new townships. They are just expanding, right? Amasama, they are expanding. They are old towns, but they are expanding. But they are expanding in an informal setting. You see, and that also goes to town planning, because elsewhere, everything will be demarcated, typical to the way you have real estate developers having their streets and everything should go into the subnational government or the district assembly, planning, so that by the time, the place is developed, you have the streets named and everything. This is what is lacking, right? So as you formalize the streets, as you formalize the registration, of the houses, and you formalize and you give numbers to taxpayers, be they business. And when we say taxpayers, we don't mean just individuals, to that company that is going to register, and that's why the Registrar General works in close, consonance with the closely with GRA. Because that number is what you need for many. Then you are formalizing, the economy. Then compliance becomes, very relatively easy. So I think the perspective, is, I'm not sure I can say it's a new one, but what Professor Sigis has done is to bring it to the fore. By the way, he also admonished, developing countries to do well, to continue with infrastructure development. I think it was very firm. And one of the areas which I like very much in the lecture is, like President Obama, build institutions.
And how best can we build the institutions to also help formalize the economy and even grow the economy?
Well, let me also bring in a modest contribution, which in the context of, what we did in the past. And with the support of cabinet and President, Mahama, we attempted to build some of those institutions, and I think it's very important to observe that it is gratifying to see that these institutions are not just being set aside, but are continuing.
Let's now turn our attention to the banking sector, where ARP Apex Bank, the regulatory body for rural and commercial banks in Ghana, has instituted a credit policy manual to enhance good banking practices and compliance. The initiative has become necessary because of the high risks associated with operating in the rural banking space. Non-performing loans in the sector is said to have shot up to 14.2%, which is almost 3 times higher than the industry accepted baseline of 5%. Head of banking at the ARP Apex Bank, Maxwell Donko, tells Love Business the manual will help sanitize the sector and strengthen the industry.
Yeah, this is the way we want to go about it. We want to bring out a manual and put in place a manual, credit policy manual. So that is what I talk about compliance. Compliance is about following policies and procedures. So credit manual teaches you how you administer credit. So such a manual has been done. We are given to our banks for their input. When it is ready, we give them appropriate training and it will be rolled out. And I believe that if such policies are put to the letter, these issues will be reduced to the barest minimum, if not completely eradicated.
Now, away from that, Deputy Minister for Communications, George Anda, has stressed the need for education and awareness to combat the incidence of mobile money fraud. This comes on the heels of a surge in mobile money fraud cases as captured in a recent report by the Bank of Ghana. Speaking to Joy Business at the sidelines of a forum for the Cybersecurity Week, Deputy Communications Minister George Anda said awareness creation will go a long way to reduce exposure to fraud.
So this week has been set aside as the National Cybersecurity Awareness Week under the theme Securing Ghana's Digital Journey. So today there was a Cybersecurity Awareness Forum, and one of the key topics under discussion here was how to mitigate the mobile money fraud that seems to be on the surge. Now, some panelists for the discussion was a representative from the Bank of Ghana, a representative from the National Identification Authority, one from the NCA, as well as a mobile money person from MTN Ghana, and then the Deputy Minister for Communications. Now, one way that they believe that mobile money fraud can be tackled was by coming up with the better regulations and policies to secure this particular platform, and also having massive education and awareness among users of mobile money. George Anda is the Deputy Communications Minister.
But we think that for now the key thing is educating the citizenry and educating the merchant layer of the chain, and making sure that we monitor the merchant layer of the chain properly, because for a number of these fraudulent activities that are taking place, there seems to be a bit of a compromise from the merchant end. Then there seems to be a bit of a compromise from the users themselves, who are giving out their pins to people that request for their pins. Once you give out your pin for any kind of financial transactions, then you are compromising the security of your account. And so a number of things. There's no way that any mobile network operator that is running a promotion will tell you to pay some money. There's no way that somebody will call you and tell you that they want your account details. If that is the case, please refer the person back to the mobile money or the mobile service operator. And then when somebody is telling you that they have transferred money into your account, please make sure that you check that the money has actually gone into your account. And what we're doing, once we get interoperability in place, then it means that you don't have to transfer money using tokens. You can transfer money directly from a mobile money account into another mobile money account, which is a much more secure end-to-end process. And of course, once we have the national ID cards being issued that are tied to digital addresses or postcodes, then we have a much more robust environment going forward.
Shilata Maklo reporting for Joy Business.
You're live on the Marketplace, live on Joy News. Now, managers of the country's energy bond have extended the auction by one more day to Friday. Joy Business understands the move was influenced by a request from some investors who wanted more time to participate in the offer. Let's now get some more details from George, who I think has been following the development and has joined me right in the studio. Now, George, were there any other reasons for
Well, even before I give you those reasons, there's a quick background, and government is looking at raising about 6 billion Ghana cedis through this whole energy offer. It started on Tuesday and was supposed to end on Thursday. They're using what they call the book building approach in terms of engaging investors. They've said that for the 7, it's been split into two to respect to this money that they are raising. One will be done over a 7-year period, and government is saying that they will pay these investors between 17 and then 19% as in the interest. The one is also being done over a 10-year period, and government is saying that if you should lend your money to me, they're going to pay you 17.5 L up to 19.5%. So that is what is, as a quick background. What we are hearing is that most of these investors who are participating in this bond, they are doing it on behalf of their clients. So, for instance, if you have about 500 million Ghana cedis and you want to buy this bond, and you are doing it through maybe Data Bank. Data Bank needs to come back to you, some engagement, some clarifications. Are you prepared to lend 500 million Ghana cedis to government at an interest rate of maybe 18.5%? If you're not satisfied by that, so there's been some back and forth between these finance houses and the managers of this offer, that is Standard Chartered Bank, Fidelity Bank, GCB, and Temple Investment. And it looks like even some of the investors now want to place more funds in this offer. And so they are saying that 2 days is not enough, and therefore give us a little bit more time to participate in this offer. And also the time to actually bring your money forward also has been extended to Wednesday, next week, Wednesday. So those are the reasons why they have been extended by 1 more day.
All right. Now, this development, the current development, will not affect, would it going to affect the fundraising exercise in
if we are believing what those who are managing the process are saying, that means possibly there could be another subscription. It's a dicey thing. Now, if more investors are bringing their funds, then there's a likelihood that government would now tell them that, okay, plenty funds are coming. I would now take these funds from you at X rate in trying to minimize the impact of raising all these funds. So it could be good, it could also be bad in the sense that are all these investors willing to lend to government at that price or not? So two things. It could lead to serious oversubscription, more funds being put on government's table to choose like PPP, and which one will I take? Which will I want to take at X cost? Or the fact that maybe the interest the government is going to pay to these investors, they are not good enough, and they might not come back again.
All right, now, George, one interesting question I've always wondered is that, is this really, this bond issue, is it really going to clear all the energy sector debts?
Now, you go through the prospectus, and what you see in there is that the debt is pegged at 9.3 billion Ghana cedis. Now, let's try and break down these debts. You have ECG having the biggest share, you have that VR having the biggest share, followed by ECG and then the other companies. Now, the BDCs in total, what we are seeing in the prospectus is what they are calling legacy debt, 616 million Ghana cedis. Previous engagement with the BDCs suggests that it's more than that one. So it looks like some of the debts of the BDCs might not be cleared through this whole funding exercise. It means that there are still more questions coming up here.
And what about the costs of raising this bond?
It's also an interesting, because if you go through the budget, you're looking at government setting aside almost 14 billion Ghana cedis as interest payments on our loans. And between 17 to like 19%, some might say that it's fair, comparing the fact that previous 10-year bonds on the market, government is paying like 17.5%. So we'll be lucky to stay within the 19 band, as in the expected interest that we'll pay on this bond spread over the years that we are doing this. But don't forget, we're already paying 2% of the money being raised to those who are helping us to raise the funds as transaction cost. So let's see what happens on Friday afternoon when they close the offer. We'll be doing the math, breaking it down for our viewers.
All right, so we're expecting over 6 billion within the local settings here, and then as well
it's a mix of investors from both local and outside, and the economists will say, all other things being equal, we are likely to get more than the 6 billion that they might be looking forward to.
Let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see.
Thank you very much, George Jaffe, for your
Jaffe.
time. And that was George Jaffe bringing us up to speed with the current development, where the deadline for the energy bond sale has been extended by one more day to Friday. Now, a report by Rand Merchant Bank has ranked the top 10 African countries to invest in come 2018. The report assesses the economic outlook and investment opportunities in Africa. There have been some significant changes in the new rankings, plus some warnings for the future economic outlook across the continent. Here are the highlights of the Where to Invest in Africa 2018 report. And well, those were some high points or highlights of the Where to Invest in Africa Report 2018. Away from that, legal practitioner Kwame Jantwa is calling on government to strengthen the legal system and adopt the franchise system of business in the country. The system, he says, has the potential of promoting informal and small sector business growth when adopted. He was speaking to the media in Accra.
The workshop, organized by the Institute of Financial and Economic Journalists, IFEG, in partnership with Volta Ghana Limited, was to educate the public on the importance of franchising. In a speech, legal practitioner Kwame Jantwa noted there is the need to understand the strict principles of the system before adopting it. This, he said, would enhance growth in informal and small-scale sectors.
We have seen how the franchise industry has helped in America. We only have, as you saw, that was given out, between Nigeria and Ghana, 100 franchise companies, which is woefully inadequate. But we need to strengthen our systems. We need to strengthen our structures. Our laws have to work if it so happens that there is some challenge with the franchisor and the franchisee. It's only the courts that can really deal with that case. So we have some way to go to be able to institute franchise. But I think it's a good thing, especially with our young ones coming up, the youth, to gradually start getting them to understand what all this means, so that they too, they can get their loins and see that there's a potential in that. Because you see, the good thing about it is that everything is done for you to a certain stage. All you need to do is take it up and run with it.
Sales and marketing manager at Volta Ghana, Raymond Ahiadome, revealed millions of people are employed as a result of franchises in the Western world. He said the system is impacting greatly on the company's operations.
Job creation potential of franchise. You saw the statistics. In US, in South Africa, it's a big thing. Thousands, millions of people are employed through franchising. How many businesses survive? Small, medium-scale business survive after 7 years? Only 20%. 20%. But when it comes to franchise, you have over 90% of survival rate, which is good. So franchising will help develop our SMEs. Before you become a fully franchised operator, you go through a lot of training. We also determine what the processing should be like, the kind of filters you'll be using, the kind of equipment you should be using, how the facility should be maintained, how the facility should be built and be maintained in terms of sanitation, all that. We train them around that. And we also support them in terms of sales, marketing, and distribution, because we do all the adverts. We sponsor that for them, both above the line and below the lines.
Officials of Volta Ghana Limited later took the media on a tour of its factory at Kwabenya in Accra.
Now, isn't it ridiculous sometimes the amount of time we spend looking for people's locations? Well, that's because we lack a proper addressing system as a country. The situation challenged Ghanaian entrepreneur Sesinam Dagadu to develop an app called Snowcode, simple yet effective in helping you find your way around town. The Joy Business Van met with Sesinam to learn more about the app, which is used globally. Here's a repeat of the Joy Business Van.
Sesinam Dagadu loves to solve problems, and he got one to solve upon returning to Ghana from schooling in the UK, where he studied engineering. He'd been raised in Ghana till age 10 when he had to travel out of the country. Returning to settle after so many years, he'd be confronted with one of the challenges the country is trying to tackle: the lack of a proper addressing system. Sesinam took up a banking job that required he finds clients. Then his frustrations began.
I'd never worked in Ghana, and for the first time I was having to work, having to go around and see people, and I realized that I was constantly lost. And I at the time said, hey, you know, this is not something that should be able to continue. I thought, you know, yeah, let's just build that we could build a solution to solve the problem, and that's where Snowcode came from.
It took Sesinam several years afterwards to develop the app. Snowcode uses a computer algorithm to generate a unique code for any location, which then serves as an address. The code replaces the area, the street name, and the house number.
We needed to be able to make sure that Snowcode was accessible to as many people as possible. And so we were using the alphanumeric character set. We had tried many things. We had investigated many things. We had investigated using colors and things like that, but we found out that in most Ghanaian languages, you only had words for red, black, white. But what this means is, as long as you know your ABCs and your 1, 2, 3s, you can use Snowcode.
All right, time to get a feel of the app. You've got to be a real genius to come up with something like this. How does it work?
Yeah, I don't know about being a real genius, but
you are.
but it works really simply, right? You open the app, all right? You download the app, and then you open it up, right? You allow it to access location information, and then you stand outside and you just say generate code. It takes a few seconds to make sure that you get a very accurate code, and there's the code. That's it.
In 2011, Sesinam established Tiny David, the parent company of Snowcode, and in 2014, Snowcode was birthed. You only need internet connection to download the Snowcode app, and from there, you don't need the internet to make it work. Not only does the app create the address, it plots routes, tells you how much you could be charged for a taxi fare, and guess what? You can fly a drone using the app. It's called the Firefly.
So normally we can have it as simple as this, where you just, with Firefly, where you just enter the code and then it just goes and performs the mission. It's gone into Snowcode, it's confirmed that we are able to fly in those areas. On the drone, you can see where exactly it is going and everything like that. So just push start. So the drone takes off on its own. Nobody's controlling it, so there's nobody on the remote control or anything like that. You're able to fly to the location, and while it is performing the mission, maybe you can go make a cup of tea. Let's go.
Wow, that was perfect landing, very smooth. Is that how business has been for you?
No, I can't exactly say that. It's been very challenging. Operating or doing this kind of thing, doing research and development, and building this sort of thing in this part of the world is not easy.
It's not easy, but that has not stopped Sesinam from winning several international awards. He continues to generate revenue models as this app proves extremely useful for businesses, especially in the e-commerce space, which need to deliver to clients. What excites Sesinam, though, is the impact he's made on society. Over the years, he's worked closely with the National Ambulance Service to locate victims in emergency situations. So how does Sesinam feel about being able to solve what was the challenge?
So you start off thinking this is the problem, and you solve that problem, and you realize, okay, yes, you've solved a problem, but it is not the whole picture. And then you always have to do the next thing and the next thing.
I guess the problem solver has got much work ahead of him.
All right, so you catch the Joy Business Van every Wednesday on Business Live with a repeat on Thursdays on the Marketplace. And this is where we wrap up today's edition of the Marketplace. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Boaji. Have a good afternoon.